a little bit of context. Why I'm particularly speaking about the local, because the local and regional authorities are part of this multi-level governance in fundamental rights. So it sounds like a bit abstract, but what different projects, in particular one past project of FRA highlighted in this regard, is that when all level of government are informing themselves about what they are doing, when they coordinate among themselves, there is a better impact in policies. There is also greater accountability. It creates also conditions for synergy, in particular budget-wise, and could create also a place for innovation. So there is really a very important element in that regard. There is clearly, and that is very clear in the context of migration. I think there are many cases that you have noticed, but it's not only in the area of migration. When you talk about health, education, social inclusion, protection of vulnerable group, all happens really at the local and regional level. There is clearly a benefit that city had of using the health expertise of national human rights institutions. So there are already some form of cooperation. If you see, there is almost half of the NHRI in the graph in orange. You can see that almost half are already have established some form of cooperation, but there's still more to be done, and there is still a little bit of a majority who has not yet put in place some form of cooperation. So there is definitely things to do in this area. This form of cooperation could take place as a regional office, for instance, but it could be also other form of cooperation. And if you see in gray, some of the NHRI have done both. So that is quite interesting. It's interesting in the area on integration of migrants, because there are many cases where local and regional authorities have been extremely active in this regard. So, for instance, by developing comprehensive integration policies for migrants, I'm giving this example of the city of Gdansk, but even beyond a really comprehensive policy, there is so many initiatives that have been put in place by cities and sometimes region or other form of local government, because they have to face the situation. So they have to find solution. In addition to integration aspect, there is the participation and engagement of migrants. That is also quite interesting. To follow the example of the Barcelona Municipal Council with migrants is a particular good example, but you have other cities that have put in place similar council with third country national and migrants. And these are really a place for the cities to have a better understanding of the needs of migrants. It's a place also where often migrants can find language training, but also information on citizenship, and create a sense of belonging to the community. So those initiatives are particularly interesting and could be replicated at a larger scale if there would be maybe some guidance or support in this regard to nationally. Another aspect is building project to test new innovative approach. And although the example that I'm putting forward for Utrecht is not really involving the NHRI, it's particularly interesting to develop this kind of initiatives where the integration is foreseen as a whole, but also linked to the community. And that create better conditions for integration. That is clearly the case. So all this initiative can be a great benefit in the NHRI work on many aspects. What could be the benefit from the NHRI perspective? First, the cities and regions have really a very concrete understanding and can really detect what's working less in legislation and policy. So you can build on that information and expertise for the advice to policymakers for the report that you're doing on the implementation of different policies. When talking about human rights education and the provision of training to a variety of professionals, there again, local and regional actors can be a very interesting channel for reaching out to them, talking about educators, healthcare professionals, child protection services. There is a wide range, even local police. There is a wide range of professionals that could be touched upon through them. Then there is also the underrepresentation of local and regional in the national context. And that in your advice to policymakers, very often for civil society, that's the case, but it's very often the case also for the sub-level of governments that they are not enough engaged in policy making. So in your role, you have the possibility to be the link into that, to raise awareness to the national level on the importance to involve the local and regional, but also to create an environment to bridge between the national, the local, and the regional level. So that is a particular interesting role that you could play. Regarding the FRA report, we really promote the idea to the member state, to the national level, to support you and to support this cooperation between the NHRI with city and region, and of course with dedicated resources that would contribute to develop further this kind of cooperation. There is always a lot of benefits to build on mayors regarding to raising awareness. So there is a lot of very interesting initiative, and as part of the documentation, the most recent pledge of different cities regarding the integration of migrants is another example of this strong positive initiative from the local. From the FRI side, we are also cooperating with the cities, and in particular with human rights cities, and we are trying to build on the good practices of these cities, but also to try to develop minimum standard for them by developing a framework of commitment. There is also another call at international level. There is a new resolution that was adopted by the Human Rights Council in September, October this year on local government and human rights. And I've picked up a few recommendations that are particularly interesting. First, the recommendation number 4, which again encourage the promotion to promote the engagement of local governments and regions into the human rights system, so that there is a lot of reflection on how this could be done, but not only in the way to involve them in the system, but also in the implementation of the recommendation. And that's where also it could be interesting for the NHRI. Recommendation number 5 is particularly inviting the UN, the funds, the program, the regional human rights mechanism, but also the national human rights institution, the civil society, to cooperate with the local to support the implementation of their responsibility. So that is the interesting links with the human rights education mentioned before. And then there will be another report that will be prepared by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights with the consultation of a lot of different actors, including the National Human Rights Institution, on the role of local government in the implementation and promotion of human rights, but also on the challenge that they face. And this will mean to support the preparation of guiding principle of guidelines for local and national to cooperate on this regard. There is a lot of untapped opportunities in that kind of cooperation. What is interesting is also to explore new initiative, and I wanted to mention that we've been in touch with the Norwegian NHRI, who is creating a project and is developing initiative to increase the awareness of local and regional authorities on their obligation, on what they have to do to fulfill the convention they have signed, and also to foster a bit more human rights city, to have this kind of initiative a bit further. So it will be very interesting to see how this project is developing in Norway and learn from this expertise and their practice. So that will be particularly interesting to follow. My last point is that NHRI are not alone in this regard. I know that it could be a bit overwhelming for that, but you do have National Association of Municipalities that can be a great partner for this work with the local and regional actor. And then you have other international. UN is going to be, of course, very active. FRI is also very active. So there is plenty of opportunity for cooperation with other actors in this regard.